Whoa! What the heck?
Ooh.
Dude. First of
Dude,
all, what?
dude, what happened? Last week we were like, maybe there will be new MACS. We don't know. Maybe it'll be a
Mhm.
press release, whatever. What happened?
Dude, everything happened. What a week it has been.
Crazy.
Literally 1 week
Crazy.
ago exactly, we sat here and we were like, I don't know, man. This one's kind of weird. Maybe they're going to put the M2 chip in the iMac. And then now, um, so I mean, we got to save this for the podcast, which I
Yeah.
think we should just do like right away. Should we
Yeah,
just
we
do it right
should.
now?
Yeah, I mean we clearly have a lot to talk about somehow.
Yeah, I think we're gonna need all the time we can get.
Yeah.
All right, it's time to do it. Everyone here is spooked. It's so fast and scary.
I
Huh.
agree.
Things are moving quickly here, so we shall as well.
All right.
Get it? Scary,
I
spook,
got you.
scary fast.
Yeah, I got you. I got you.
Yeah, yeah. All right, let's do it. Welcome to Dark Mode, the podcast that brings you sage advice from two technology experts. And that's not just what we call ourselves, it's what our moms tell people when we tell them not to buy the MacBooks that came out in January because a new one is coming out tomorrow and they don't know what that means. I'm your host, Luke Miani.
And I'm your host, Noah Rubin. On the show, we take questions from listeners, attempt to answer them to varying degrees of success, and maybe even have a laugh or two along the way. Maybe even a new chip or two along the way. Apparently, kind of crazy.
I, who would have thunk it
I
is what
know.
you could say. Yeah,
Yeah.
I am very confused because we were here not but a week ago with these rumored I think Mark Gurman called them Mac announcements, and we were like, well, what does that mean? Are we getting an iMac with a chip upgrade to the M2 that's overdue? Are we getting an M3? And now I don't know if you've seen this, Noah, but the M3 Pro and Max boxes for the 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pros leaked.
I think I did see a picture of the box. It was like a very distinctive wallpaper on it. I think I did see that.
Yeah, and so let me go and find this. I'll pull up the original picture here. And what the heck is going on here? Did something happen to X? Because I am only seeing like, oh, what? It only lets you see the top tweets. If
What?
you're not like, I'm gonna have to stream this. I'm sorry, this is already going off the rails, but this I think is new to me. I'm not signed in to Twitter on Chrome. So I looked up Luke Miani Twitter, clicked it, right? Simple enough. And what it appears to be showing, I was like, what is this timeline? December 2022, July, March, like what are these random May 7th of
Yeah.
this year? Like what is this? Well, it's sorting by most liked. And it seems like it won't let me like change. Like, why is this not chronological? There's no way to sort it.
That's really weird. Can you click on like one of those other tabs? Do those like the replies or the likes or whatever? No, you
Oh my
can't.
god, you can't click on it.
Ugh.
That's so stupid.
Classic. Of course.
Right. Well, I guess I'm gonna have to sign in. You know what? This is stupid. Screw X. We're done with that. I'm not going there. They're gonna make me jump through all those hoops. You're gonna have to take my word for it, Noah. I saw a leaked box. It was a picture of the obviously the only thing that was different was the wallpaper, but the wallpaper was like, the Apple event invite and that like finder that's like black and like glowing.
Yeah.
It was basically that.
Yeah, it was very like it was dark, like a black or like dark gray kind of looking. It was like I don't know. I saw it and I was like, is that really? Because it looks like an Apple wallpaper, but I guess the color scheme is really what threw me off. Because usually I feel like the
Yeah.
wallpapers are a bit more colorful.
No, you're absolutely right. And I don't know. The thing that I drew from that most of all was that's real. Like, just here's the thing. You can make fakes as much as you want, but if making like a fake picture of like an unreleased Apple product requires you to make the exact wallpaper, even making a wallpaper with any degree of like, I don't know, it's just I never ever ever see fake leaks with wallpapers, because it's one thing to make a fake leak, it's another thing to make a fake wallpaper, because it's so much easier to just Photoshop, you know, 16 over a 15 or M3 over a 2, or like you can fake little details, but making a whole wallpaper, especially when that's the only thing that has changed, that would be hard to do. Add on to that the fact that the wallpaper very closely resembles the media that Apple has released for the event tomorrow. I'm pretty sure that's real. So I'm going to go out on a limb here, Noah. In 24 hours, we are going to get the M3, the M3 Pro, and the M3 Max all at once. I think we're going to get, at the very, very bare minimum, MacBook Pros and an iMac. I think perhaps the way Apple would do it is iMac 24-inch. That allows them to introduce USB-C accessories. So goodbye Lightning port. So they'll replace that. Then they'll do the 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pros for sure. Those are like almost guaranteed at this point. The wild cards for me are, do we get a 13-inch MacBook Pro? Do we get any MacBook Airs? And do we get a Mac Mini? That's what I don't know.
Yeah, it's like kind of crazy because before this event was announced and we said like we were thinking like okay, maybe they'll do a Mac. Maybe they'll put the M2 in the iMac. And I was like I was going to be okay with that. Sure, put the M2 in the iMac. But when they announced this event, first off, they're having an event, has to be more than just that obviously. But
Yeah.
the name or the tagline or whatever, scary fast, right? It has to be the next generation of chips. You don't call it that and put the same chips we've already seen in a new product. It doesn't make any sense. So it has to be the new chips. And even then, I would still think, okay, M3, maybe M3 Pro, because we've seen, the Mac Mini has a pro level chip in it. Maybe they'll do even an iMac with a pro level chip in it as well. But
I would hope.
scary fast, they got to do the Max too. I don't know about the Ultra, but like at least the Max, they gotta do more. So I'm so bewildered by all of this.
No, absolutely. I think that, dude, it's weird because I think that all of those points are great. We're almost certainly going to get M3 Pro and Max, all three. So the question then is which products get it, and what about Vision Pro? Because this is the weird thing. You're talking about scary fast, right? That obviously means something big is happening. And we'll talk about the weird timing in just a second. But
Oh yeah.
this is obviously a chip upgrade. And it's a chip upgrade that carries an outsized importance, because I think Apple is aware of the stiff competition that they're facing from Intel. It's actually kind of ironic that Apple just transitioned away from Intel 3 years ago, and at the exact same time, Intel was like, "All right, you know what? We got to get our shit together," and they have absolutely been gunning the last couple of years. In fact, I just did a video which I compared the M2 Pro Mac Mini to a micro PC, 4-inch by 4-inch, like absolutely microscopic, with a Core i9. Now, it's one of the only micro PCs with a Core i9, and the thing that I noticed about said Core i9 was it was almost exactly the same performance as the M2 Pro in some basic benchmarks, which was weird. But it's even more weird because that CPU was running at its minimum power allotment because it's in a tiny computer. So the M2 Pro being a higher end laptop chip competing against a Core i9 higher end laptop chip, not their super beefy ones like the Core i9 13900HX. That thing is a monster and it absolutely smokes M2 Pro and Max in a lot of cases. But this thing was matching it running undervolted basically. Like it was using 35 watts of power with a different implementation. You could give that chip 115 watts. So obviously Apple still has that, they really do have the efficiency aspect that nobody else has, but they don't have the performance edge anymore. That's undeniable. People will cope about that. And, I'm not saying that it's objectively worse because it's not as fast. I would rather take an optimized chip with good battery life and thermals than just the maximum amount of performance possible. But that being said, it is not deniable that Intel right now, at a price point and a tier of processor point, they're faster. So we thought, last week we talked about what the heck are we doing here? We just got M2 Pro 10 months ago. Why are we getting M3 Pro already? That's crazy. But this is what Apple has to do to really continue to assert their dominance in this field. You can't fumble the bag 3 years into launching your own chips.
Yeah, that's a good point because when we talked last week, there was that rumor, and who was it? It was like Gurman or someone said like, I wouldn't be surprised if they do the new 14 and 16-inch Max, and we were like, that's kind of crazy because we just got them in January, whatever. So I definitely agree with you. Like Apple has sort of the Apple bubble, right? There's the people that buy Apple products and will always buy Apple products, but definitely there are some people who could go either way, and those are the people that Apple could lose to Intel. So definitely, I guess they need to keep up. I don't know if there was something, if like the M2 got delayed or the M3 got pushed up. It does still seem kind of weird that they're 10 months apart, they're very close together. But I guess I'm not going to complain about getting, more power, better processors.
Yeah, and I think we got to address it head on. Ray tracing. We're going to get ray traced MacBooks in 24 hours. Hello? Is what I made a TikTok, all right, like 2 days ago, where I talked about the gaming aspect of this. And I think that is legitimately going to be very important. We'll talk about the core configurations and like what we're expecting out of these new chips. We'll talk about that in a second. But the big thing that I'm seeing a lot of discussion about from German Trader Joe over here, Trader Joe Johann, we've got it's happening at 5 p.m. Pacific time tomorrow. What? What is all this about? Like, why are we getting an event in the evening? It's going to be 8 p.m. my time. That's weird. One of the proposals that I heard is that particular time will allow Apple to have a tie-in from an as yet unnamed Japanese game developer that is supposedly heavily featured in the event. So having this event during Japanese business hours was apparently the reason that they are doing an evening event this time. And that opens a whole can of worms, right?
Yeah, that's like, I don't know. I guess it's kind of funny. Like Apple and gaming have never really gone together. Obviously, like mobile games on the iPhone, Apple Arcade, whatever, that stuff's super great. But when we're talking about like, the Mac level and like, you mentioned ray tracing, which which the iPhones got in the more recent chip. Like all of this stuff points to something a lot more than just like a mobile game. And then the fact that they're partnering with I also heard this about the some Japanese game company to do something. I'm so interested to see, what it's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, dude, here's the thing. I think a lot of people like to overanalyze Apple. Like, we've got all of this mystery of gaming, okay? And there's been a lot of people who are confused, bewildered even, and a lot of people who are very quickly jumping to dismissing it, right? Okay, it's Apple. They don't really care about gaming. They're going to have a couple of partnerships where they've basically handheld a developer into Apple Silicon porting a game. They're going to release, they'll have like two dudes on basically the same stuff that came out at the iPhone event, right? There was the Resident Evil, they had like a couple like console level type games that were
Yeah.
coming to the iPhone in some form. They'll do the same with the Mac and call it a day. And that's very much possible. I don't want to say that that is not what's happening here, but I will say that I think there is the potential for Apple to actually legitimately take on the idea of AAA gaming, like legitimate, real, not just mobile or Apple Arcade gaming. And the reason that I think that is very simple. Okay? Rewind, let's put ourselves back in 2018. All right? Noah, you just had the Core i9 15-inch MacBook Pro, the infamously well-cooled, very ventilated Core i9 MacBook Pro.
Uh-huh.
I was still rocking my 2016. I had an iMac that had a Radeon M395 4 GB card in it. In 2018, the vast majority of Macs were not capable of running games even if they were supported. Apple's highest end MacBook Pros at that point had the Radeon Pro 560X, which was basically a refresh of the laptop version of an RX 460 that came out in 2015. It was a low end GPU, double refreshed 4 years later. Like, even the most expensive stuff, you would have had a hard time playing well optimized games. And I know that because I ran them in boot camp. Okay. So the issue with Mac gaming and Apple supporting it is because if Apple were to encourage developers to support running their games on Mac OS, consumers would very quickly find out that their hardware just wasn't powerful enough. And it would have made them look bad because all of these people in their MacBook Airs, would have tried to fire up Battlefield and been like, oh, well, that sucks. I'm going to buy a PC now. Like, maybe not that, but it doesn't make them look good. Nowadays, we have a situation where even the cheapest, the least powerful Apple Silicon machine, the M1 MacBook Air, is already extremely powerful and would be more than capable of running very decently demanding games. And when you get up to like M3, the M3 Pro and Max, a lot of people have the M3 Pro. Like that is not a niche high-end chip. The M3 with ray tracing, I'm sure, is not going to be a niche chip. There's going to be millions of devices. And so what Apple can basically say to developers now is, okay, look, the game has changed, pun intended. couple of years ago, I get it. You didn't want to invest your time in developing games and supporting all of these different SKUs of Mac just so that you could get, 1,000 people that have that GPU and want to play that game. But now you say, look, you develop for Apple Silicon, and boom, you've got all of these devices ready to go in one fell swoop, millions of potential customers. That is a lot more appealing.
Yeah, I think, a few things that really pop out. One thing, you mentioned that Apple announced some AAA games coming to the iPhone. If you're already going
Mhm.
to port these games to run on the iPhone, they might as well run on the Mac as well.
Yeah.
iPad eventually, when the iPad gets, the M3, whatever, all of these devices. So, like you just said, the last thing you said, when you target Apple Silicon, you're targeting so many different devices. You can target iPhones, eventually iPads, Macs, maybe even the Apple Watch. Just kidding. But you can
That'd
target,
be amazing.
yeah, AAA games on the Apple Watch. But no, you're able to target all these devices, and then also, like you said, now they finally caught up in terms of being powerful enough, so it's actually worthwhile to do it. But I definitely agree that there is a space, right? Plenty of people, even people who aren't gamers, have Macs. In fact, I'd say most gamers don't have Macs, or it's not their gaming computer of choice,
A
obviously,
lot
right?
of gamers will dual wield. I'm
Right.
one of them. I have a gaming PC, but I use Macs for everything else.
Yeah, that's very true. But I feel like there are some people like that, but a lot of people who maybe aren't gamers and they just have Macs, and it could be a market that Apple could really tap into. Like they had Apple Arcade. I guess you can play some of those games or maybe even all of those games on a Mac. I don't know how much Apple's really pushed that too much, but definitely more like, maybe even the AAA titles could be better. And then I was also thinking, if we're getting a new iMac, imagine a gaming experience on the iMac. That seems like a great 24-inch iMac like we have. Maybe we'll finally get the 27-inch iMac back, maybe with a Pro chip in it. Maybe even we've heard rumors of a 32-inch. Maybe that'll come later, whatever. But like that could be a very like good machine for all of this gaming stuff to happen. You got this nice, very large display. It has the nice built-in like surround sound speakers or spatial audio speakers, whatever. Keyboard, mouse, maybe even plug in a controller. Like I could definitely see Apple, marketing that not just for gamers, but also for gamers, maybe.
Absolutely. I think it's a very strong possibility, and we had a comment here that pointed out that the game porting toolkit for game devs happened this year. Um, so I don't think it's a coincidence that we've got Apple talking about new chips with ray tracing 6 months, actually not even 4 months, 5 months after they introduced the game porting toolkit, which has already made things a lot better. So I don't know. It really does seem like Apple isn't just half-assing it this time. I think that they see, obviously they are one of the biggest beneficiaries of the gaming industry. Mobile games. Mobile games are much bigger than desktop gaming in terms of profits, which most gamers don't consider those real games, uh, depending on your definition. But I think Apple is finally seeing like, okay, well, what's the harm in trying to get into this new market? I mean, somebody brought up a great point. What if these AAA games come to the Apple TV? I think we talked about that at one point. If Apple were to put the A17 Pro into an Apple TV, that would honestly be on par with like, I mean, it's more powerful than a Nintendo Switch by a matter of multiples, and that's a full-on game console. So, Apple could very easily pivot with existing hardware to making a console. And that is not like that's not a simple thing to do. But that's what Apple Silicon would allow, right? They could literally just put a Mac Mini on your TV and have a console if the game support actually materializes.
That is very true, and I didn't even like think about the Apple TV because Apple hasn't really done much to it in quite a while. But absolutely,
Exactly.
there's no reason why they couldn't just stick a much more powerful chip in there. And then obviously, they'll say if you want to play games, you're going to have to get a controller to work with it. You're not going to use the Apple TV remote to play your AAA games, but that's fine because iOS
Speak for yourself.
well, okay, good luck with that. But like all of these, like their underlying system, iOS, iPadOS, macOS all share the underlying system that has amazing support for game controllers. It'll work with PlayStation, Xbox, Switch, third party, whatever. So they already have all that groundwork laid. It's been there for a long time. You can already use game controllers on the Apple TV, right? So you might as well, if they put a more powerful chip, and then that's just yet another, like you said about targeting Apple Silicon and getting a bunch of devices, that's yet another device that they could target for free, right? You already have the Mac.
Yeah.
Your game's already going to support keyboard and mouse. It's already going to support controller input. And, maybe the touch input is a little bit different, but if you want to target the iPhone, you're going to do that. But if you're already targeting the Mac, you might as well target the Apple TV too, right? And then you'll get the people who play on the Macs. Some people might plug their Macs into their TVs. And then the best experience is you just have like the Apple TV set-top box on your TV and you're good to go. Like that would be pretty awesome.
Exactly. I mean, that has got to be compelling. That has got to be compelling. And what I'm curious to see is obviously all of this stuff is true regardless of this exact specific event, right? Like an event is a great time to highlight gaming, but one would assume that it's not going to be exclusive to M3 series. But that being said, the implication exists that you kind of have to imagine that the M3, M3 Pro, and M3 Max are going to be pretty legitimate if they're doing an event that is, I mean, the focus seems to be on the chips and how fast they are. I mean, they literally, it doesn't get any more obvious. We're not really reading tea leaves with this event invite. All right. It's literally called Scary Fast, and the animation is a Finder logo. I think we all know where it's going. So the question is the M3 a major leap? Because I don't know if you remember, but we talked about this on the show a month ago. The A17 Pro, the CPU is almost unchanged from the A16. It's not even a different internal identifier. It's just called, I think that the A16 was called H15. I don't know why those numbers aren't the same. And then the A17 Pro is called H15 Col. So, on the CPU, very similar. The GPU obviously adds ray tracing and it is more of an increase, but not like crazy. So it does make you wonder, like, if these M3 chips are just, based on the A7, if these chips are based on the A17, which one can assume that they would be in 3 nanometer, is there more to it than just adding some more cores and ray tracing?
Yeah, I mean, like, okay, the title or the tagline. Obviously, it's a pun on like Halloween, and maybe this is a
Mhm.
separate topic, but I feel like I'm very curious if they're gonna do any. They got to do some sort of like at least a nod to the fact that it's Halloween. But I wonder if they'll do anything else, like spooky music or like even costumes or like who knows? Maybe they'll
That'd
do
be
something. We can
funny.
talk about. But
They've
but
definitely done like late October events though without making any addressments to Halloween, but this time they did. So maybe you're right.
Yeah, exactly. Like the fact that they called it Scary Fast and they're going for that like, the theme's like very dark, very black, like scary, spooky, whatever. I guess we'll see. I'm sure they'll probably keep it pretty professional, but maybe we'll get, some little joke in there or something. Who knows?
I hope. I hope Craig comes out in like a jack-o'-lantern or something. He's just like
That would
wearing
be
a giant
fun.
pumpkin, you know? That'd be good.
I would like that.
I saw an interesting comment here. What if they release an Apple TV with an M3 or M3 Pro for playing games on TV? I mean, yeah, I think it's not out of the realm of possibility that Apple could do an Apple TV Pro. Imagine that. $299, maybe even $399 with an M3 chip that runs tvOS and is like fully a game console. They could do it.
See, I was thinking about that because I play video games not super frequently, but I guess I've been playing them a bit more frequently lately. But I have a Switch. I love my Switch and I play like indie games. Like okay, the Switch is a 2016 console with a
Yeah.
2016 chip in it that has
It's
not changed.
old.
I have the OLED version, so the screen is nicer, but the chip is the exact same. So it's a very old mobile chip, but it still plays the games that I like to play because they're all like small indie games, whatever. But I was thinking like the reason why I like the Switch so much, I mean, I like the controllers, I like how that whole thing works, but I like the ability that I can dock it on the TV and play on the big screen. And then if I want to take it on the go, I have the same games, the same, all my save files in progress, the games run the same, my settings, whatever. And I'm thinking like maybe the Apple TV could almost recreate that, right? With iCloud, when and you buy a game, let's say you buy a game on the Apple TV and it's on your Apple ID, that game should probably also show up on your iPhone if it's supported by the iPhone. So, like you buy an app on one platform, it shows up on your other platforms most of the time.
Yeah.
So if that happens, right, then you get a very similar experience where I can play on the TV with my Apple TV. When I go on the go, I can play on my iPhone, and the iCloud save file will sync, my progress between the different devices, my progress and my settings and whatever, and you get a situation that is very similar to what the Nintendo Switch gives you. And there will still be a place for the Switch. Nintendo has some great first party games and franchises that they'll always have. But I feel like this could legitimately compete with the Switch because so many people already have iPhones. They already have that part. Add in the TV part. If they have the TV part, it'll make the mobile part even better because developers will be more incentivized to bring games to Apple Silicon, and then some of them will run on your iPhone or your Mac. It just makes the ecosystem even better.
That's a good point. Dude, I mean, the ecosystem argument is just so compelling. I think that this is now where Apple is able to make the ecosystem work for this new area, right? They tried it with Apple Arcade. Apple Arcade was supposed to be that, you buy it and it shows up on all your devices and your different platforms and you get to play the games, but it didn't really make a ton of sense. I don't think anybody gives a shit about Apple Arcade anymore. But like now we talked about earlier, your iPhone has Resident Evil. There's nothing that physically would stop them from just implementing that on the iPad and the Mac and all the way up the product lineup. I think that they will. I think that they probably have already been. I think this is like a lie by omission, like it was a month ago that they announced all those gaming things. I am fairly confident that every single one of those developers has been developing for the iPhone and the Mac all along. We just haven't heard about it yet.
Yeah, definitely, you know, definitely those games that we already saw and maybe even more. They'll say like, "Oh, we said they were coming to iPhone and now they're coming to Mac too." Like I fully believe that.
And here's another another very interesting comment here. In keeping with this confusion of what exactly we're getting tomorrow, Jamie here speculates, I think we're going to get compute modules for the Mac Pro. And I actually don't remember hearing about this. Uh, Apparently in iOS files, compute module 13, 1 was found. I'm looking this up now because I'm not aware of this. But
I don't
That would
remember
be
this.
really, really interesting. Oh, wow. It's real. February 23rd, 2023.
Hmm.
An all new here, let me share this cuz this is interesting. Now this is a little older. This is from February, so it's actually before the new Mac Pro came out, which is interesting. So I'm not sure if this is the CCRP on this is not very strong. We'll put it that way.
Sure.
But they say the new compute module device class was spotted in iOS 16.4 developer disk image from Xcode 16.4 beta, which is interesting. Yeah, because why would it be in iOS?
Yeah.
Curious. So they have two different compute module 13,1 and 3. The purpose is unclear, but speculation argues they're designed for the Mac Pro, which is weird because why are these showing up in iOS and why is it showing up before we actually got the Mac Pro? But I suppose it's possible that if Apple is working on a compute module, whatever that means, that could that could be coming in 24 hours.
Yeah, I guess, so this rumor was from before the Apple Silicon Mac Pro came out. Uh I guess, we would have expected, if we had talked about this, we would have expected maybe that would materialize when the Apple Silicon Mac Pro did. Although we weren't even expecting to see the Apple Silicon Mac Pro at WWDC, and it just showed up and we were kind of surprised. We were surprised that
Yeah.
it showed up, but we were also kind of disappointed by it because it's basically, you know, the same it's the same chassis with like a Mac Studio crammed in a little corner, and then there's so much extra space, and it is modular. You can add extra storage or whatever, but it was still kind of confusing. And I feel like if these compute cards exist, whatever they do, if they're like afterburner cards or something else, whatever they are, they could potentially help justify the existence of the Apple Silicon Mac Pro. And so I think it is a little bit weird that they didn't launch at the same time as the Apple Silicon Mac Pro, but we got a random Apple Pencil out of nowhere a couple weeks ago. That was
Yeah.
weird. There's a bunch of weird things that are happening. We're getting an event at 5 p.m. Pacific time. That's a little bit weird. Who knows? Maybe we could see them. It would definitely fit with the theme of scary fast and, the MACS. It would definitely fit in the overall theme. Also, we can talk about like, it's going to be a whole event. It has to have a decent amount of stuff in it. It's not going to just be a 20-minute, one and done little thing. They gotta fill it out a little bit at least. So we never know.
Well, that's actually a good point because we're in uncharted territory here, Noah. It could be a 20-minute thing for all we know.
I guess, but like, I mean, it is online only. It was a little
Mhm.
bit last minute, but I don't know. Do you really think it would be? Maybe it's not going to be the full length of like, an iPhone, Apple Watch kind of event, but I feel like, I don't know. Maybe they could do a little bit extra. I don't know.
I think probably 45 minutes.
I could see that.
I think it's going to be a little shorter, and I think we also got to keep in mind that Apple benefits from the outsized hype that a last minute event like this causes. So I think a lot of people maybe are getting their expectations set a little too high. I would probably, I would guess, if I had to be realistic here about our expectations, I think we're going to get the M3, M3 Pro, M3 Max in the 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pros, maybe a 13-inch MacBook Pro update as well. I think no MacBook Air. I think we get an iMac, and honestly, maybe we don't even get a Mac Mini. There's no reason that they couldn't do it because we talked about last week in the hypothetical that they released an M3 and not an M3 Pro. The Mac Mini would be weird because you'd have an M3 Mac Mini and an M2 Pro Mac Mini. So, given that we're getting all of those chips, a Mac Mini is very much on the table. But beyond that, I mean, I guess that is pretty much everything. I don't think we're not gonna get a Mac Studio. I think we're not getting a Mac Pro. We're not getting an Ultra chip. We're not getting a larger iMac. I don't think that's gonna happen. Realistically, I don't think we're gonna get an M3 Pro iMac either, and I don't think we're getting any MacBook Airs. Um, I think Apple is probably trying to get the price down of the MacBook Air. So if that means it's got to be on an older chip, sure, fine. Um, so yeah, that would be my expectation. As for the chips themselves, we have heard some interesting theories about the core layouts for the GPU, which I will pull up in just a second. But what do you think about my expectation of like devices that we will or will not see updated? Do you agree?
I agree with what you said, but I am holding out hope that they will do one additional thing. That could either be a larger iMac, it could be the hypothetical Apple TV we talked about. I guess, we would have heard something if it was going to be that. So it's probably not going to be that. But it could be a larger iMac, could be the Apple TV thing. It could be these compute card. I don't know. I'm just hoping that there's going to be something beyond even if they put a pro chip in the iMac, even if they're all 24-inch iMacs, but there's one configuration with a pro chip in it. I feel like at least, and that's not even that interesting, and that has no bearing on me because I'm not going to buy an iMac. But like, I'm just hoping that there's like at least something a little bit, because if they just come out and they say, okay, here's the new chips, we'll look at the core counts in a second and whatever. They say, they're going to be marginally faster, maybe even a bit more. But if they do that, then they say, okay, we're putting it in these existing products and, something related to gaming. That's okay. But maybe one more little thing to make it a little bit more exciting. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah. No, I think that that's fair. I'm not sure what that one more thing in this case, as it were, would be, but I really think that the like wow factor for this is going to be the tie into gaming. I think that the chips themselves are going to be a decent upgrade, but I think that the gaming support really is the focus of this. I mean, they wouldn't change from a Tuesday morning to a Monday evening if they wanted to just have, some developer shoot a little video that they put in after they introduce the chips. I think that that's like legitimately like half of this event is gaming focused. That would be my impression anyway.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I'm curious to see, okay, maybe the one extra little thing is related to the gaming, but it's just if they just say, they'll say, we'll have console level games with ray tracing and whatever running flawlessly on our new Apple Silicon Mac. Like they'll say
Yeah.
that, and that's great, and that's very cool. I just hope that there's like, I don't know, one extra little, even if it's related to gaming, one extra little thing, if for no other reason than for me, because I don't really play AAA games, and I feel like I also wouldn't personally want to play them on my laptop if I like to play games on a TV, or if I'm on the go, something a bit more portable, but usually on the TV. So who knows? Maybe just something a little bit extra.
That's true. Somebody said here a 52-foot iMac. What do you think about that?
Oh, that would be great for gaming. I mean,
Oh yeah.
huge display.
Talk about an immersive experience, am I right?
We don't even need Vision Pro anymore. Just get one of those.
That's no, absolutely. I think you would that's they could call it the eye wall at that point.
I like that. I think I'm pretty sure that's going to happen. I'm changing my prediction. That's going to be the one extra thing.
I agree. I agree. Now, here's the thing that's weird. We got to get back to the chips for a second because I think we've got a good understanding about what we're looking at in terms of the devices, but the chips themselves, very odd. And I want to show you this one particular leak from Power On, from Gurman's newsletter that just came out this morning. Very weird. Okay, so here's his expectations for the M3, M3 Pro, and M3 Max. First of all, crazy that we're getting those all at once. Just have to say that again. But the M3 is expected to have 4 high performance cores and 4 efficiency cores and 10 cores for graphics. That's the same as the M2. Okay, so already seems like a refresh more so than the total overhaul with 3 nanometer that we were expecting. But where things are weird is the M3 Pro. He says that there's been multiple configurations, including one with 12 CPU cores. That's the same core count that we currently have, but it's a different breakdown: 6 performance, 6 efficiency. That is very odd, okay? Because right now we have 8 performance and 4 efficiency. That makes a little bit more sense to me. I don't know why you would reduce the performance cores in favor of more efficiency cores. But 18 graphics cores, that's not bad. That's not bad. We currently have oh god, what is it? 19 cores?
Something weird. Yeah.
That's the max. I think 16 to 19. So then this is going to 18. Odd. Um and then higher end versions of the M3 Pro could have 14 CPU cores and 20 graphics cores. Okay. So this is weird because I've seen this reported as there are different like variants of what could be the M3 Pro. This sounds more like the binning thing. So it seems like we are going to get an increase of 2 cores. I would assume that those are performance cores. So we would have, weirdly, the same amount of performance cores at 8, but 2 more efficiency cores across the board.
Yeah, I'm
And 1
wondering.
more GPU core.
Yeah, I think like okay, and the first bullet point under M3 it says um far faster performance from each core. So maybe, they're focusing more on the power of the cores rather than just adding more cores. And so maybe I do think it's still weird 6 performance and 6 efficiency, but maybe those 6 efficiency cores are noticeably more powerful than the previous ones, to the point where some tasks that would have been handled by a performance core could actually now be handled by an efficiency core or something like that. It is still kind of weird, I agree, but maybe there's some sort of math going on like that.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I think the math is probably, I would hope that we're talking about a component level upgrade, because the M1 and the M2 are very, very similar. The M1 is based on the A14, the M2 is based on the A15. So and the A15 is based on the A14. So like it's all very, very similar. They're basically the same cores. And the A16 is a tweak of those yet again, with the A17 being a further tweak of that. So I am hoping that there's a little bit more. Okay. If you're talking about scary fast, what we're seeing is an additional 2 efficiency cores and 2, or it's either 2 or 1 additional GPU cores, which is weird. Although to be fair, the M2 was weird because they have 16 and 19 are that's the binning. That's a weird number. Don't know why they did that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you're talking about a very similar layout to the CPU and the GPU. So hopefully the cores themselves will be a little faster. As for the M3 Max, this one this is actually more interesting to me, because for the first time we have an uncoupling of the CPUs. The M the M the M1 Pro, the M1 Max, the M2 Pro, the M2 Max. The only differences between those chips were GPU cores. They added more, but the CPUs were the same. So you could buy a 14-inch MacBook Pro or a 16-inch MacBook Pro, M1 Pro, M2 Pro, M1 Max, M2 Max. They were tied together, but now they're not. So I think this is actually really encouraging because I think Apple does need to push the envelope a little bit. And so going to 16 CPU cores, that's 12 performance for efficiency. That's a great ratio. 12 performance cores, dude, that sounds like a crazy good chip. That is a
Yes, that
really
sounds scary
interesting chip.
fast.
Oh yeah. And so I suspect that will actually make I think that's going to make the Mac Studio a pretty tough sell if you think about it. Because or not the Mac Studio, the M3 Ultra Mac Studio, a tough sell. Because I think the M3 Max is going to be just about the perfect chip if you need crazy performance, but you don't need the expense and the, let's be honest, diminishing returns that you get with the Ultra chips.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I know there are some people who have said that even the M2 Ultra is not enough for their workflows. I don't know if they're doing 3D modeling and rendering or some sort of crazy video editing or visual effects, whatever. I'm sure there are people that will appreciate that even more power. But for the vast majority of people, okay, the vast majority of people would be fine with the entry level chip. Just to be
Mm-hmm.
clear, they'd be fine with the M3. But it is very cool and it's very nice to see. I don't know, just like it's just like typical progress, right? But in a couple years, when I want to upgrade my current Mac, I can get something like this one. The one that I have right now is like fully upgraded from when it was new in 2021. But in a couple years, I could theoretically get something that's at least as powerful. Like the base model in a couple years will probably have, you know, not maybe it won't be quite as powerful, but it will be more powerful in some regards, and it'll have caught up a lot. I don't know. It's nice. It's nice to see when they push the envelope for the upper level chip. Then you get a little bit of trickle down economics into the lower tier chips, and over the years it compounds, and it's good to see them pushing at the higher level, even if you don't need the higher level. It'll come down to you eventually.
No, you're absolutely right. That's a great point. And I think a lot of people miss that. Like we always talk about a lot of the high end stuff, even if we don't need it. Like it's just the excitement for the technology.
Mm-hmm.
And what I think is interesting this time around is Apple is seemingly setting a decently high expectation, right? We know that we're not getting a hugely different CPU configuration. They're, adding efficiency cores to the M2 Pro and they're adding a performance cores to the Max. We're adding, he said 32 and 40 GPU cores for the M3 Max. That's a net gain of 2. Currently, the binned is 30 and the full fat is 38. So that's plus 2 on the Max. Now that's a great. I think that's a sweet spot. But the question really is, what are the cores? Because I think, to your point, no, a lot of people are really pushing the limits of everything. They want the fastest of nothing is fast enough for some people. And so I'm sure people are going to be, sitting there with their fully loaded M2 Pro, M2 Max 16-inch going like, "Okay, give it to me. I want more. Give me that power." And I mean, you have to assume we're talking about 40 compared to 38. That's 5% more cores, not 5%. What is 2 out of, yeah, 5%. Is that right? Is my mental math right on that?
Uh, bro, you're pretty close. 5% of 38 is 1.9.
Okay. All right. So I'll take that. So you're getting we should be able to expect a minimum of 5% performance gain just by adding more cores. Um
Sure.
so one would hope that when you take those cores and make them a little faster, maybe 15 or 20% plus ray tracing, which obviously will make things even better because it's hardware acceleration. I'd be happy with that. I think that's probably what we're looking at.
Yeah, I think that seems pretty typical. Usually like around 15% performance like for a like a baseline. Some years, they really go, more on the performance, but like I think pretty typical is around, 15%. I think that's what the M2 over the M1 was like 15%, right? So,
Yeah.
um yeah, I could definitely see, if they're not increasing the core counts by all that much, then the power of the individual cores is going to have to go up in order for that to work. And I feel like, yeah, they combine that with the ray tracing, like the better GPU. There was someone mentioned something about like a new neural engine, a new image signal processor, whatever, like a couple upgrades throughout the chip. And it'll be a decent, maybe not the most exciting chip. I think the ray tracing is pretty cool, and I think Apple's going to take advantage of that. But a pretty solid chip upgrade otherwise.
Yeah. And another thing I wanted to highlight here, right? We've got Milton here in chat saying the what we've been talking about, the chip expectations for the CPU, the GPU. But what's interesting is, and I had forgotten about this, 36 gigabytes of memory. So what does that mean? What's going on here? Well, apparently the theory goes, Noah, that Apple is moving away from using the 8 gigabyte chips that they've been using, and they want to go to 12. So here's where that gets interesting. I think that there is a chance that the new base amount of memory will be 12 gigabytes instead of 8. And I'm putting that out there because I haven't really seen that. It's not a leak per se. I don't have any sources that I can point to. But from everything that I've heard, we already have a 24 gigabyte memory option. Now we're hearing about 36. Like and 96 was an option on the M2 Pro or on the M2 Max, right? So Apple is already starting to dabble with these multiples of 12, right? We're not just base 8s anymore here, folks. So, what do you think?
I think that would be a great addition. I mean, I'm never going to say no to more more memory in my computer, but I definitely think yeah, I mean if Apple wants to push these computers a bit further, and if they start talking about, if they want to start talking about AAA games and they want those to run, those can use a lot of memory for like the GPU to have all the textures and whatever meshes and map data. I'm not a game developer, but I know that games take up a lot of memory, and so even for that reason alone, but also just general performance and being able to have more things open at once, I think it would be great to see more multiples, more to see multiples of 12. And I think, to your point about that, we've seen them start to show up. It always makes sense. You're always going to see things go in these multiples. Like obviously powers of 2 is sort of the baseline. Like, things like you see a lot of things happen in powers of 2, 64 gigs, 256 gigs, 512, 1 terabyte, whatever, powers of 2.
Mhm.
But generally, yeah, if you see like 12, 24, 36, they can have that 12 gig chip and put more of them more. So you always see things in multiples, and that would be great. I'd be happy with that, honestly. If they're like the max start with 12 gigs and the upgrades are increments of 12, that would be awesome.
Dude, that I got I've made a mistake, Noah. I got my hopes up. I got too excited
Yeah, yeah.
because I just thought about what a better value 12 versus 8 is. Like the thing is, it's just so expensive to add memory to and storage to Apple devices. That honestly, they could make Apple Silicon competitive just by adjusting those upgrades. Like the M2 Pro, the M2 Max are more than enough performance for most of the people that buy it. No question. Where it gets where the value gets a little bit harder for me is in the outrageous criminal frankly prices that they're sharing that they just haven't let go of. I mean, like, dude, it's been like this since 2015. Come on, man. Like, if I go to spec out an M2 Pro 14-inch, okay? If I want 16 gigs and a terabyte and the full fat M2 Pro, I'm at 2500 bucks. Now that's not a bad price, but I think if you were to go to 2 terabytes of SSD, boom, your budget is already blown. You know what I mean? Like you do one upgrade to the storage, $400. 16 to 32 gigs of RAM, $400. That makes no sense to me because I could go on Amazon right now. I like how I Googled it. That's fun. Don't worry about that. I could go ahead and look up 2 terabyte NVMe SSD and look at these things. $126. Here's a 980 Pro. This is a Gen 4. This is faster than Apple storage, tell you that much. Look at that. 6,600 megabytes per second from Crucial here for $105. And that's just to buy it outright. That's not even an upgrade. Apple is charging 400 additional to upgrade from storage that you're already paying for. So like, dude, they really they could fix their entire lineup by going to base 12. So 12 on the M3, upgraded 24 and 36, and just reducing the prices. Knock $100 off. It can still be overpriced, but just $400 to go from 1 to 2 terabytes. Get real. We know it's 2 chips of NAND. It's not that expensive.
No, I definitely agree. It's always I like to have the 1 terabyte of internal memory. I could probably get away without it, but I am using more than 512 right now, and I kind of
Mm-hmm.
like the peace of mind of not having to deal with it. But it's so expensive, and same with the memory upgrade. Honestly, like I have it on this one, but I really don't need it. But like I agree, start a little bit higher and then make it more worth it. Even if you jump up to the max chip and you get 24 gigs instead of 12, that's already pretty big. You really have no need. Most people have no need to upgrade the memory beyond there. But I also agree, make it a little bit cheaper. I like, the student discount is nice because it makes the upgrades a bit cheaper. It makes them almost palatable, but like make them a bit cheaper. They really can. And if Apple needs to compete, if they're launching this chip 10 months after the other one and they're like upgrading computers that have been recently upgraded, if they're actually scared of their competitors of Intel, maybe this upgrade is scary fast because they're upgrading it really quickly because they're scared of Intel. Whatever, they could reduce the prices a bit, upgrade the what they're offering and reduce the prices of the upgrades, and that would go a long way.
If they did 512 gigs of storage to as base. Oh,
Yes.
Oh,
So good.
please, please. They won't though. That's the thing. Dude, it is such a racket. It really is.
Yeah, if anything, if literally anything, they would do an iPhone 15 Pro Max and they would get rid of the lower tier storage but still charge you the same price for the higher tier storage. If
Right.
anything, that's what they would do. I don't think they would do that. If that anything, that's what they do. I don't think they would make it less expensive.
Yeah, I know. It's just so tragic. I mean, dude, it was bad enough this year, or I guess last year with the M2, where they put one 256 gigabyte NAND instead of two 128s. Because honestly, Apple has been so stubborn about this that it's harder for them to find storage that's small enough. That's the thing. It's actually like it hurts my mind because a lot of people thought that Apple did that for cost cutting. No. Dude, it's just hard to find someone who's willing to manufacture NANDs that are that small anymore. So they just said, "Okay, screw it. We'll just use the 256 and just have one of them, and we're just going to make your SSD half as fast instead of just upgrading the base storage, which we should have done years ago." Like that is how committed they are to ripping you off. And it's so weird because they don't rip you off on their chips. The chips are a great value. You know, an M2 MacBook Air is still a good price. 1099 for a laptop of that performance, absolutely worth it. The problem is, I talk about this every single time a new product comes out. If you start upgrading the storage and the RAM, it obliterates any value proposition that you're getting. And I don't understand why they're so obsessed with ripping people off on the storage. I mean, maybe here's a crazy conspiracy theory. Maybe this is all a tactic. Maybe they said, okay, you go out, you buy a new MacBook, you get so disgusted by how ungodly expensive it is to upgrade your storage that you say, screw it, I'm not going to do it. And then you run out of storage, so you're like, ah, well, now I got to buy another computer.
I mean, maybe. I I guess maybe it's more just like Apple's got to make their money somewhere. Obviously, they have margins on their computers. Like you buy the base model, obviously there's going to be a margin on that. But I guess like the upgrades are such an easy place for them to make big margins. It's so easy for them to say like, you know, pick how much storage you want and remember you won't be able to upgrade it later, so you better make sure you have enough. And then it almost like not I don't want to say scares people into it, but it makes you think like, oh, better safe than sorry. I better just spend a bit of extra money now so I'll be fine down the road. And then some people do it and whatever. They have huge margins on those and I guess they don't want to give up those margins as much, but I definitely agree, you know, this could be a great opportunity for them to do something better, even if they don't make the upgrades less expensive and they just increase the base start at 12 gigs of unified memory, 24, 36, whatever. And if they keep the prices the same, that would still be a bit better. Like you'd start with more and most people would be fine with that. But the people that want to upgrade, at least you would get, you know, you'd go in increments of 12 instead of increments of 8. So the value, even, you know, you get a bit more value for the same price if you do upgrade. Still too expensive, a little bit more value for the memory. We'll see.
Exactly. I think I honestly I would be placated for the next couple of years, 2 or 3 more years if they just did that. 12 gigs of unified, half a terabyte. I would be such a happy camper. I would still not even touch those upgrade prices because there's still too much. But at the very least, I wouldn't feel like I was being ripped off because I would have a usable starting point. That's part of the reason why I recommend the 14-inch MacBook Pro so much. It's because when you go like Apple's prices are so weird that they're like cannibalizing their own products basically, because like we know that if you go to buy a 14-inch MacBook Pro, right, 1999, that's going to get you obviously the double bin processor, that's going to be the same going forward, but you get 16 RAM, 512 SSD. But if you go to buy a MacBook Air, the 15-inch, which I love, I absolutely adore the 15-inch MacBook Air. But the problem is, if you want 16 gigs of RAM and half a terabyte SSD, you're already at $1,700, which is only 200, 300 off from buying a new M2 Pro 14-inch, not even mentioning the discounts that you can find on them. So, I don't know, man. I hope they do something about it. Um, which would of course mean they'd have to start at a terabyte on the 14-inch, because if you're doubling the base storage, you kind of have to do it across the board. So I think it's unlikely, but the RAM I could see. I know that Apple loves their 8 gigs, but I'm hearing a lot. I don't know. The CCRP isn't there, but the murmurings, whatever the opposite of CCRP is, right? It's not credible, correlated, repeating, or proximal, but it is like there.
Yeah, it's the vibes. It's
Yeah.
the aura. It's the
Mm-hmm.
I get it. I get it. I feel
Yeah.
it.
You feel it? You feel the vibes?
I feel it. I think unified memory increase could definitely happen. I hope so.
Dude, it's exciting. It really is exciting. And so I guess we gotta fill everyone in on the plan for tomorrow, because this is a weird one, right? We have our podcast less than 24 hours before the Apple event. That's weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
Normally they're on Tuesdays, but a Monday night, very strange. Anyway, as usual, we will be here streaming during that event. And I know that there's a bunch of people here that don't normally get to go to Apple events because of the time. So now they'll be able to. Conversely, there's also a lot of people that do go at that time and won't be able to go this time. But anyway, don't worry about them. They'll be fine. Should we start streaming what, like half an hour before? So 4:30 p.m. Pacific?
I think that's good. Yeah.
Okay, I agree. The thing that I have to figure out is what I'm going to do for my video, because event starts my time at 8. It'll be done by 9. We'll probably be done our stream by 9. But the thought of like 9 p.m. and it's like, okay, go make your video,
Yeah.
kind of kills me a little bit.
Kind of rough.
I might end up just waiting. I always try to do a right away video. Maybe this year will be the year where I wait and I do a video in the morning.
Yeah, I could see that working. Collect your thoughts a little bit. I will say, you know, it very soon it will be if this happens again, it will be easier for you because it will be what time will it end for me? Like 6, about 6 for
6.
me.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit after. So, if you were to be on the West Coast, you might have a little bit of an easier time, but who knows?
If I were to be. Have I revealed that I'm moving to Los Angeles? Have I done that? Have I said that I'm
I don't
doing that?
know.
Because I'm doing it.
I don't know. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty soon.
Let me tell you, moving cross country while being a full-time YouTuber, not easy, because you don't get to just submit time off, or you know how jobs will like pay your relocation expenses? Could you imagine? No. Not only is it all out of pocket, hopefully some of it's tax deductible, but I will also have to work and have been working extra to get extra videos to go up while I'm I mean, dude, I'm gonna like literally just be a vagrant for like 2 weeks because my stuff gets moved out, and then I'm just like not even supposed to be around anymore.
Yeah, that is really rough because, before your apartment is all set up, it's kind of hard to film. It's not going to look
Yeah,
super great.
yeah, I won't have my gear with me. I won't have. I mean, like, dude, everything is gonna be gone. I won't have anything to edit on. I mean, I'll have the M3 Pro 16-inch MacBook Pro probably, but yeah, I don't know how that's gonna go.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting time. I like the comments. Someone said, Gavin said, a lot of other Apple podcasters are moving too. Interesting. We know of one, potentially
Yeah,
eventually two, that are also
I
moving.
hope.
And then people are asking why you're moving. Why are you moving?
That's
It's
a
to be
great
closer to
question.
me.
It's yeah, I Noah's so far away. I want to be able to. He has like a an effect, but it only works within like a 600-mile radius.
It's
And I was
true.
like, all right, I don't want to get too close. You know, I'm not gonna go live next to him. But if
Right.
I go to SoCal when he's in NorCal, that's I think that's close enough.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be any closer than that, but like I think that's an acceptable distance.
Yeah, so I guess I will say I will answer two comments here as our closing remarks for this episode. Number 1, the question was why am I moving? The reason for that is I live in Washington D.C. There's not a ton of tech media like entertainment and tech YouTubers, influencers or anything like that here. Los Angeles has a bunch of people that I know that already are there and that are going there. And it's just kind of the place for new media. And the other thing is this comment saying Los Angeles is a lot more expensive. Well, you'd think that, but I live in Washington, D.C., and it honestly isn't any more expensive than it is here. So I'm already used to it. You know what I mean? Like, if I was moving from Dayton, Ohio, I'm sure that'd be a little rough. My standard for living would probably get me a little bit more in terms of like square footage in Dayton, Ohio, but also I don't have to deal with that because I'm already getting screwed, so it's not any worse.
Yeah, pretty much. But it will definitely be very exciting to have you out on the West Coast. It'll be good for your timing when you have to make videos at 8 p.m. or it'll or 9 p.m. It'll be even earlier here. And I just want to
Mhm.
point out that we actually, or I guess you actually, just took questions from listeners and attempted to
And
answer them.
answered them to varying degrees of success.
I know it's pretty
Oh
good.
wow, that's incredible. And on that note, we better end before we ruin it.
Yeah, I agree, and we're way over time also.
Oh, absolutely. I had every expectation that that would be the case, and it sure was. But you know what also is
Hmm.
the case is
What?
that the episode is over, and I've been your host, Luke Miani.
I've been your host, Noah Rubin. We will see you in less than 24 hours for the Apple event stream. Make sure to come to Luke's channel for that. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Take care.